Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. I thought everything was normal. He was always late from work, but I trusted him. Or at least I thought I did. I'd make excuses, tell myself it was just the pressure of his job. Late meetings, long hours. He had an important career. But the more it happened, the more it felt off. Something wasn't right. I'd see the strange looks he'd give his phone when I entered the room. A quick glance, then he'd hide it. It was like a game to him, and I was the clueless player. But then, one night, I walked into the room while he was texting and saw a name pop up I didn't recognize. My heart dropped. His phone was buzzing incessantly with messages, and I couldn't resist. I grabbed it when he stepped out for a second. It was full of notifications from a dating app. My stomach twisted. But the worst part? He wasn't using his real name. He was using a fake one. I stared at the profile. A handsome man, smiling confidently in every picture. I couldn't believe it. How long had he been doing this? How could I have been so blind? The name on the profile wasn't his at all. Was he pretending to be someone else? Was he living two lives? I didn't know what to do. Should I confront him? Should I pretend I didn't know? But there was no way I could let this slide. I had to find out more. So, I started reading the conversations. The messages were flirtatious, suggestive. He'd been planning dates with this woman, behind my back. Every message was a punch to my gut. He'd been lying to me for so long, and I never had a clue. He'd been going out on these dates, acting like a completely different person. And all this time, I thought I was the most important woman in his life. I felt sick, betrayed. But I had to know everything. So I started searching through his phone. I found dating app screenshots he had saved. All from women he'd met, all under that fake name. They were all complimenting him, telling him how lucky they were to have met him. I couldn't stop scrolling. Each message revealed more lies. He'd been out on multiple dates, some even in our city, just miles away from me. He'd told me he was working late, but he was really out with someone else, pretending to be someone else. I wanted to scream. I felt like my entire world was falling apart. I'd been so trusting, so naive. How could I have not seen the signs? I couldn't let this go on. But I still couldn't decide what to do. Confront him? Leave him? Part of me still wanted to believe there was some explanation. But then I found something even worse. A message from the woman he was seeing that night. She said, "I can't wait to see you tonight, love." I froze. My heart shattered. He was calling her love. I had never heard him say that to me. Was I just a fool? I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. The lies, the secret dates, the fake name. It was all too much. The trust one had in him was crumbling faster than I could process. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but it was my reality. That night, I stayed up, staring at his phone. He had no idea I knew. It felt like I was living a double life too. One where I was his clueless wife, and another where I was the woman who knew his dirty secret. I felt sick to my stomach. Was he seeing multiple women? Or was it just this one? I started to gather information. His fake name wasn't just for the dating app. It seemed like he had built an entire persona around it. I dug deeper into his messages, finding plans for future dates, dinners, and even weekend getaways. He was pretending to be someone else, and I had no idea. I had to know if it was a one-time thing or if he'd been doing this for years. The idea of him seeing other women behind my back was too much. I went back to his messages, desperately looking for anything that might explain this behavior. But there was nothing. Just more lies. I felt so foolish. I'd been making excuses for him, telling myself he was just busy or stressed. But the truth was much darker. He'd been going on dates, falling for other women while I was at home, waiting for him to come back from work. The thought of it made me feel like I was losing my mind. I confronted him that night. I couldn't hold it in any longer. He was shocked when I showed him the phone, the messages, the dating profiles. He tried to lie, but the evidence was clear. He'd been using a fake name, meeting women, and I had been nothing but a blind fool. His face turned pale, and he started to apologize. He said it wasn't what it looked like. He begged me not to leave him, but I couldn't listen to the excuses anymore. The betrayal ran too deep. He tried to explain that it was just an escape for him, but I didn't buy it. I wanted to scream, to yell at him for everything he had done. But instead, I stood there numb. How could I have missed all these signs? The man I loved was a stranger, living a life full of secrets. He had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even fathom. He kept saying it was a mistake, but the pain in my chest told me otherwise. It wasn't just one mistake. It was a series of lies, a pattern of deception that had gone on for months, maybe even years. I didn't know who he was anymore. The man I thought I knew was nothing but a facade. I left the house that night. I couldn't stay there, surrounded by the lies he had created. I needed time to think, to process everything. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I couldn't pretend like everything was okay anymore. I had been living a lie, and I needed to find my truth. Days passed, but I couldn't stop thinking about the betrayal. I kept asking myself if I could forgive him. Could I ever look at him the same way? Could I trust him again? The idea of him dating other women, using a fake name, made my heart ache. How could I ever go back to him after this? I spent hours talking to friends, getting advice. Some told me to leave him, others said to give him another chance. But deep down, I knew that things had changed forever. I didn't feel safe with him anymore. I didn't feel loved. All I felt was the sting of his lies. I went back to the house. He was there, waiting for me, still hoping for a miracle. He promised he would end it with the woman he was seeing. He said he would do whatever it took to make things right. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was just saying what I wanted to hear. I asked him to be honest with me. For the first time, really honest. I wanted to know everything. Who was this woman? How long had he been seeing her? Had there been others? His answers were all over the place. It was clear he hadn't been truthful about anything. The more he spoke, the more disgusted I felt. His words didn't match his actions. He said he didn't want to lose me, but he didn't seem to realize the depth of what he had done. The damage was done, and no amount of apologies could fix it. I started to wonder if he ever really loved me. Or was I just someone he kept around while he played these games? It hurt too much to think about it. But the truth was there, staring me in the face. I had been a part of his lie. The hardest part was knowing that I couldn't undo what had happened. No matter what I chose, the trust between us was shattered. I couldn't go back to the way things were, and I didn't know how to move forward. It felt like I was at a crossroads with no clear path. I made the decision. I couldn't keep living this lie. I couldn't stay with a man who had betrayed me so deeply. As much as it hurt, I knew I had to walk away. The pain of staying was worse than the pain of leaving. Leaving him was harder than I expected. I thought I'd feel relief, but all I felt was empty. I kept thinking about the good times, the moments before everything fell apart. But in the end, I knew it was the right choice. I had to let go. Now, I'm learning to rebuild my life. I'm learning to trust myself again, to believe in my own strength. The journey is hard, but I know I'm better off without him. The truth always comes out, and I'm finally free from his lies. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you like the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.